Hello. So today we're gonna be talking about Aeschylus's play The Persians, but not the text of the play from this book. So earlier this week I did make a video about the text of The Persians, and you should be seeing a link for that in the top corner. But for this video, we're going to talk about a specific production of The Persians. Because again, like I said, earlier this week I made a video about the play. And then today, July 25th, Saturday, July 25th, 2020, very serendipitously, the National Theatre of Greece live streamed their first ever performance of an ancient Greek play from the theater at Epidaurus, and they live streamed a production of The Persians. So I'm going to talk in this video about the National Theatre of Greece's production of The Persians at the theater at Epidaurus. So first off, for those of you who don't know, the theater at Epidaurus is one of, and I'll put up a picture of it here so you can see it. I think a lot of people have probably seen pictures of it, whether they know what it was or not. But it's one of the most important theaters in the world because it's one of the very few theaters that remain from ancient Greece. Now, to be clear, this is not the theater that Aeschylus's plays would originally have been produced in. This is a later construction of a Greek theater, but the setup is the same as what Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles, Aristophanes would have known in the 5th century BCE. So it's an amphitheater setup. It has a central area called, and I'll put up a diagram of this so you can sort of imagine this visually, but it has a central area called an orchestra, which is where most of the action, particularly choral dances, take place. Then it has a stage behind that from the spectator's perspective called the skene, and that's where some of the action takes place, and that's where entrances and exits to the stage are. And then the audience is seated in sort of raked seating going up. And Epidaurus is regarded as, it's often called the most beautiful theater in the world. Obviously that's a subjective assessment, but is widely considered to be an extremely beautiful theater. And the other thing about it that's really, really impressive is the acoustics. Supposedly, I haven't been, I'd love to go. I haven't been and I haven't done this, but I know people who have been and who have done this. Supposedly, if you're standing in the stage area and you whisper, you can be heard up to the back rows of the amphitheater. It's that acoustically well set up, which is really actually quite crucial because in ancient Greece, they didn't have microphones. There's some debate about whether the masks that ancient Greek actors wore might have had sort of, megaphone type tubes that could have amplified their voices, but we don't know for sure. But they would have been speaking to large audiences. In the city of Dionysia, there were probably 10 to 14,000 spectators. So that's a large crowd. And if you have to speak to that crowd without a microphone, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. So you need good acoustics. So that's part of it. But I want to talk about this specific performance of The Persians, directed by Dimitris Lignatis, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, and I apologize if I'm not, because you did fantastic work, Dimitris. So this was a really interesting production because it blended moments of very sort of classical or neoclassical sorry, I'm blanking on the word that I want. declamation, basically. Characters, especially Atossa and Xerxes, very much were in that sort of 18th, 19th century mode of, I'm going to stand center stage and I will speak to the audience and I will declaim my speeches, kind of thing. So you have that element, which is a very conservative, really sort of outmoded approach to performance at this point, at least in a lot of Western theaters, in the US, the UK, places like that. Actors don't tend to do that anymore because it feels very stagey and it feels often very phony. That being said, at times it worked really, really, really well in this performance. So for instance, when the ghost of Darius returns, he and Atossa are speaking to one another. So he's come in through the main entrance, through the Scena, and he's standing on one side of the entrance. She moves to the other side of the entrance. They're having a dialogue. They're talking to one another, but they're both facing toward the audience. And so it's not naturalistic acting. It's not in the sense that, like, this looks like two people having a discussion. It looks very staged and very sort of formal and archaic in a way. But and so I'm not a huge fan of that as a general acting technique, but what really sold that for me is when Atossa turns to the ghost of Darius and takes a step toward him, and he puts his hand up. It's actually to the side, because he's still facing forward, but he raises his hand to stop her, because he is dead. He is a spirit who's come back from the underworld to prophesy the fate of Persia, to prophesy the fate of the Persian army, and the punishment that Persia will receive because of Xerxes' hubris. So Darius knows that he can't connect with his beloved wife. Wow, what a moment. What a simple gesture that made that work. You have, in that moment, in that raise of the hand, you have these characters going from monarchs, going from people performing for their subjects, performing for the audience of Persians, to human beings in that moment. And it's good. So good. But the other thing, so that's one element of it. You have that very traditional standing center stage, facing the audience, declaiming your lines type of performance. But you also had these really, really emotionally intense scenes. For me, my personal favorite, even though he's not necessarily the most important character in the play, the messenger. Man, the messenger was a powerful performance in this. And I apologize, by the way, that I don't know any of the specific actors' names. They were sort of listed at the beginning of the performance, but then the list in the description of the YouTube video and on the Live at Epidaurus website just lists the cast. It doesn't say who they portrayed. But the messenger was so emotionally powerful, and he built because as you know, if you've watched my other video on the Persians, the messenger builds up this narrative of suffering. He goes through all of these generals who've died. he goes through the story of the Battle of Salamis. And man, when this actor playing the messenger, like one of the things the chorus did was they had these really long stabs, and they did a lot of their choreography with that, which was really fascinating. But they also left them on the ground for a large portion of the play. And so this messenger picks up one of these stabs, and he holds it like a spear, and as he's narrating the war cry that the Greek army gave, the war cry that they gave as they were preparing to attack the Persian navy at Salamis. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I think I should be able to find it. Yes, here it is. So he gives this speech. Sons of Greece, go, free fatherland, free children, wives, shrines of our fathers' gods, tombs where our forefathers lie, fight for all we have now. So that's this translation. Who translated this one? Janet Lemke and C. John Harrington. That's their translation. That's not the translation that the English subtitles for the production of Epidaurus used. But that's the speech. Like this, the messenger picks up this spear and he's screaming this speech, just this rage of passion, and it's so good. It was such a visceral, amazing performance. And that was one of the two moments at the end of that speech when he's given that passionate, anger-filled repetition of the Greek war cry. The audience claps. The audience applauds mid-performance. That Greek pride there. The other instance where that happened is Atossa demands of the chorus to know who's the king of Greece and the commander of their army, and the chorus says something to the effect of, they're slaves of no one, they're masters of they're masters of themselves, something to that effect. The audience, man, claps. That's the first moment of applause, and it's that Greek pride that spectators would have felt in 472 when this was first performed. It's the same pride the Greeks have today, and that's an amazing thing. Like, this year is the 100 is the I forget what it is, because I can't do math because I'm an English person. I want to say 2,500th year anniversary of the Battle of Salamis, and it's one of the, like, and you can sort of say that and be conscious of it as an American and whatever it is, but see that performance where the Greek audience, or predominantly Greek audience at least, applauds these moments of the Greeks are free, they answer to no one, they're slaves of no one, and this war cry of defend your homes, defend your wives and children, defend your liberty, that draws applause from this Greek audience. It puts it in a different perspective because it highlights, and to be clear, I don't necessarily buy into the theory that the Greeks today are in some way the same as the Greeks from 2,500 years ago. They're not. Greek culture is very different. they no longer have the same religion. The language has changed. Cultural influences have come and gone. But it doesn't matter in that moment. It's still a moment that evokes Greek pride in this really fantastic way. So it was, that element of it was just, it was a thing that you can know consciously, but it just revealed it in such a simple, such an amazing way. So, but that was one. So that was one of the things. The Messengers performed so much passion, vigor. It was. And then the other one, the other moment, the other scene that really I thought was fantastically well done was when Atossa and the chorus are summoning the spirit of Darius. So, I mean, she's there, center stage. This is the only time, and she's mostly very static. Like, her performance is very, like, her arms are pretty much always like this. She moves slightly, but most of the play she's just not moving. But when they're doing this ritual, calling up Darius's spirit, she's flailing around. She's spinning her the cloak that she's ripped. The old men of the chorus have taken off their shirts inscribed with Greek lettering, and they're spinning their shirts around. They're dancing ecstatically. The chorus leader is downstage on his hands and knees at a standing microphone, chanting this invocation for Darius's spirit to come back from the underworld. And the music is swelling and it's thumping and it's, I mean, wow, what a scene. It was like, you think about the ecstatic, like, Dionysian dances of something like Euripides' The Bacchae or something like this. Just this frenetic, energy-filled chanting with spinning dances, swirling dances, and this rhythmic thumping. It's just incredible. And I know I keep doing that as though that's meaningful, but like, it's hard to put into words how that moment functions on the stage. So again, it was this sort of serendipitous confluence of events that I happened to have made a video earlier this week about the Persians, having completely put out of my mind that the National Theatre was doing this production at Epidaurus this weekend. But I'm gonna try and put a link. I'm really hoping that they will have a video of the production that you can go back and watch. If they do, I will put a link in the top corner. I'll put a link in the description below this video, because it's so much worth a watch. It's about 90 minutes or so. It is in Greek, but they have English subtitles. So worth it if you can check it out.